legal meaning. A person with a disability is any person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. Physical or mental impairment includes, but is not limited to, hearing, visual, and mobility impairments, alcoholism, drug addiction, mental illness, mental retardation, learning disability, head injury, chronic fatigue, HIV infection, AIDS, and AIDS-related complex. The term major life activity may include seeing, hearing, walking, breathing, performing manual tasks, caring for oneself, learning, speaking, or working. Group homes for handicapped or disabled persons as they relate to recovering alcoholics and persons with drug addictions may also be known as sober living arrangements. And then the other one is for 8 or fewer persons, that is for purposes other than those defined as group home for the handicapped or disabled. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Bed and breakfast. You okay with taking that out? Okay. And let's see, did you all at all consider the auxiliary dwelling units as something that could be?
They're accessory dwelling units.
Accessory, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Dwelling.
What
You
they're
haven't
asking,
considered it, or what?
have not considered it.
What would you? Pardon me? Not requesting.
No, ADUs are allowed within a residential attached zone district. 80 or accessory dwelling units are also known as ADUs. That's a very common term, just if you ever hear it. So they are an allowed use within the RA zone district.
So-
You would just have to have a primary residential to be able to have the accessory dwelling.
You can explain to the public, what is an ADU?
An ADU, a common one is when you have your house and then you have an apartment over your garage, or if you have an apartment in your basement, it's a second dwelling that you rent out to people. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the manufactured homes out thing. Do we need to make a condition to ours with regard to the bread and breakfast thing that's currently they hadn't agreed to in the agreement, or?
Yes.
In the agreement. Okay, yeah. Even though you agreed to it, you okay? Just want to make sure I'm
What?
not trying to be hard.
Just put the language in the annexation. That's the annexation, not the zoning.
Correct.
The annexation agreement's a contract with the town that says what we can and can't do. So excluding that would be in the annexation agreement, which is part of the annexation act.
So the motion would,
Yeah, the motion to remove bed and breakfast from the annexation agreement is tied to the annexation motion.
yeah, okay, that's what I want to know. Okay. Two-family homes or duplexes, right?
Duplexes, patio homes, it's just 2 dwelling units attached.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, have her ask, because I gotta,
Luke, he's gonna keep going with his notes. You got Commissioner Green on there. If you could bring her up, please.
Hi there. Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to point out that, that the public was part of the comprehensive plan that had a future land use map in it, and it did not call for this zoning or anything close to it. It's fine to annex in land, but consider annexing it in either a mixed use PUD zone or a low density residential and see then what they can do with it. Already they're coming to the table short on water. They're 16 acre feet short on water. And I just find it amazing because usually in an annexation agreement, you would be asking the applicant for maybe more water because you can. Instead, we're saying, well, maybe we'll take you without all the water that is required for that development. And I want to say again, I am extremely worried about putting this concept plan in an annexation agreement, which is a contract, which means they can do that plan. And you're not going to see it. They have rights to it. You just put it in their contract. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about going through the zone district and picking out parts of it, which sounds a lot to me like conditional zoning. And I just think if we want to approve this annexation, approve it with the zoning that you think it is appropriate for the land. I don't think, the county, I do not think can do anything as bad as what we're sitting here possibly doing to ourselves.
Chairman? Can I
Yes.
ask a question for the record?
Yep.
In what capacity is Ms. Green speaking?
She is a commissioner. Yes,
So
sir.
she'll be voting tonight?
That's, she will not be.
Speaking of the public.
Say again.
It's closed to public.
She's one
hearing?
of the commissioners. So she's not going to be voting, but she is a commissioner here on our board. That's why she has the option. She can ask the questions.
So she's acting as a commissioner tonight.
A non-voting
I'm not
commissioner.
voting commissioner.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And, if you want us, we can address the conceptual plan and the contract zoning if Allison wants to weigh in. Conceptual plans as part of an annexation agreement are very common in the practice that I've been doing. And the conditional zoning, removing things, that's one of the things you can do with an annexation agreement, but I can let the town attorney weigh in on that as well.
But you don't put them in a contract.
That's what an annexation agreement is.
I know. You don't put them in an annexation agreement. You review them.
Town attorney weigh in, but it is common practice.
Yeah, because the town has so much discretion when annexing property, we oftentimes see all types of terms and conditions and annexation agreements that you might not otherwise have the discretion to negotiate. So you do have a lot of latitude here.
You do have a lot of latitude, but we're giving it all to a applicant as opposed to doing what's best for the town.
I mean, it's an agreement for the town to negotiate. So
Well, the negotiation is over if we're voting on it tonight.
The planning commission doesn't weigh in on the annexation agreement. You can make recommendations to it, but that is part of the annexation process that the town council has. The planning commission's part of the annexation is just the part in the bylaws that says you recommend based on the comprehensive plan and the interest of the town. And that's statutory.
at what point is the agreement finalized? Before it goes to the council?
Yeah, we would have it in a final form to go to council, and then if they wanted to have further negotiations, it would either happen at the dais or tabled and done more.
And all the discussions to finalize that agreement, you're involved in?
Yes, we are involved in, and you can make recommendations as well. Yes,
Okay, but you'll be involved. Once we get done tonight, you'll be involved.
yes.
You've heard all the speak. heard us. You know what the concerns are. And you'll have those in your mind as you go about.
And we can put them all in there.
Well,
Yeah, we can put them all in there and then it's up to the town council, but the developer can also stand up at council and say, staff put in these, we don't agree with X, Y, and Z, and council can take them out.
Understand it. I just want to say that as long as you're working with them, they've heard the people here. You've heard the people here. So I hope that when you put together an agreement that goes to the council, it's an agreement that is in the best interest of the town, of the citizens, of the applicant.
To the best of our, we are bound by some things, like if they want to go with a straight residential attached, and there are processes within our code, there are some things we're going to be bound by that we can't add to it, but where we can incorporate, we will.
Ian. Then I'll make my final comment and then, of course, I do believe that we need in any motion, I do believe we need to address those zoning to make sure that they're in the agreement.
Sheila, what's the difference between a multi-use PUD and a PUD?
Thank you. Nothing really. We do PUDs for single uses. We do PUDs with multi-uses. I think if this is referring to Commissioner Green's comment, the land use plan shows mixed use. And I think that's what she is looking for, is them to submit a PUD that has a mix of uses rather than even just a PUD with just single family or a straight zone residential.
One other question I have on the zoning, item 3 there down is community facilities, which is conditional, correct? Which means that they could, if, for example, a 7-Eleven or a small grocery store or something wanted to open and they were able to get somebody to go along with it, they could.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Community center
I-
does not mean that either.
Yeah, community facility means uses that include buildings, structures, or facilities owned, operated, or occupied by a nonprofit or governmental agency to provide a service to the public. Specific use types include, but are not limited to, municipal buildings, post office, or public safety station.
Yeah. So it's not like a commercial type use.
So it just seems to me, I understand you don't want commercial. I understand that. But it, pardon me? Yeah, well,
Was that an open forum meeting or was that just a meeting between you and the commit or the planning commission? Okay.
that, and certainly this is not the group that did that, and the group that did that, they're no longer with us. So, okay, I want to get that clarified, but, okay, it's,
Let us finish what we got to do, sir, because again, I know you got questions. Well, but that's what we're filtering through that. So give us a moment. That's a question for the city council, sir. All this is a recommendation to the city council. That it's again, what we're doing is cutting through all the tape on this, sir. No, we haven't said that. We're asking a lot of questions. You're asking a pointed question on what somebody's saying. Yes, sir. Commissioner Green made it. Yes, she's absolutely right. Yep, you're absolutely right. Well, that, when, again, you can sit there and you have your opinions, but we're going through our process. Thank you,
Look-
sir.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to him making the comment. How much commercial did you have in there? 7 acres. And you would have been willing to put that in? Are you still? Would you be willing to put it back in?
They can't. They can't access it to County Road.
Yeah.
Back in. Burden on that intersection. It's been untenable. I'd love to have a Mavericks there. Couldn't figure out how to make the traffic circulation work.
And do we all understand that? I mean, what I think is important, folks, and then we're going to make a motion here and we're going to get out of here. But what I think is important is that we all understand that everybody's trying to do the right thing. I believe they're trying to do the right thing. They've got restrictions put on them that they have to try to live by, and no matter who develops that property, when it's developed, those same restrictions are going to apply, and that's the way it's going to be. And personally, I'm going to vote that we annex it with the condition that I spoke about, because I'd rather for us to have our folks working with them to try to get the right thing than the county working with them and putting something beside you that you aren't going to get any say in of any significance, I assure you. Well, we can't table the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80 days.
This is a recommending body.
Okay, come on, folks. Let's try and get through this. Let's try and get through this.
This is a recommending body, so this is a recommending body. My recommendation is whether you recommend approval for the annexation, denial for the zoning, denial for both, approval for both, whatever it is, you make your recommendation to the council, and if the council wants to delay it, then they can, and they can fall within that 90 days. It keeps everything moving on track, but it still gives your recommendation to the council.
Perfect. Questions?
With the applicant, would you be willing to set aside the RA zoning for PUD? I know that's a lot of work, but
At ease, folks. Come on. Come on. Let's,
the reason I ask is because it, as Commissioner Green said, and as Mr. Koopman mentioned earlier, we're not anywhere near close to conforming with the,
Right.
with the
Just
comprehensive.
for the record, I was in the early meetings when we had the pre-application meetings, et cetera, and tried to craft an application. And what a PUD means to us as a developers, we get to write our own zoning. So we get to determine setbacks and things like that. And what happened was your staff called a halt to it, said that we did extensive work to try to come up with rigid standards for zoning in the city of Monument, and we want you to comply with those. We're not going to allow you to write your own zoning. So we abandoned the whole PUD, had our land planners, engineers, architects recraft everything to meet your standards, your setbacks, et cetera, et cetera.
Understood.
And so we've come in with the straight zone, and now a year and a half into the process, somebody says, hey, would you consider doing a PUD? And by the way, I mean, for us,
And I apologize.
well, I
was
just
not here.
want to
A lot of
get the
school-
genesis of it, because for us, anytime we can write our own zoning
Mhm.
and convince the planning
Sure.
commission, convince the town council to go along with our plan, our setbacks, make it more economical to build houses, et cetera, we like to do that. But in this particular case, your staff encouraged us to go with the zoning that you guys spent countless hours trying to direct so that you can keep those standards in the city.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you.
So your answer is no?
Answer is no.
Well, our answer is what Norby said, is that Mr. Larson said, is that, we've spent a fortune trying to meet your criteria and design the project accordingly. And we would lose time, money. I'm not saying it would be starting over, but very extensive process. Anytime you start to redesign lots, et cetera, et cetera. So we were trying to comply with your standards. And I think it would, again, it would be costly. And I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to achieve because you guys set rigid standards for your zoning. And now you're saying, go ahead and create your own standards and come back to us and say, what do you think? And you go, well, we don't love that. So we go back again and come back. So we tried to map the project according to the town of Monuments. I think quite rigid standards for zoning and rightfully so. You guys are
Sure,
trying to
and
protect the
like-
community.
and like Sheila said, we're just a recommendation body, right?
Understood.
So, and our job is to evaluate projects that you bring forward
Yeah.
and bounce it against the comprehensive plan.
Understood. And I wanted to give you
There's a
context
need,
for
right?
how we're here
Yeah, and I
today.
understand that. I appreciate that.
Okay.
But from our point of view, I think it doesn't fall within, the recommendations in the comprehensive plan. So that's something that we have to look at. I think to work together, a PUD would be the best way to do that, to move forward, but I understand your position as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hours, the only thing I would say is if the county is the one that ends up development,
Folks, come on, please, come on, guys.
if the county ends up being the one that gives them the right to develop, then what our comprehensive plan wants means nothing to the county. Absolutely nothing to the county. At least our comments to the council will have meaning to the council. And when it gets to the council, they'll consider those and they may do something, but I would certainly recommend that we approve it.
Okay, Mr. Egley.
Yeah, I had just a couple of comments. One of the questions I had was, I didn't really see any place in your submission or in the packet that talked about the economic impact to the town of Monument with this particular development. Do you have a feel for that? What the bottom line is going to be?
Don't get sales tax in any of this development if it goes to the county. You don't get property tax if it doesn't go in. Do not. There was, the property tax ratios are different between residential and non-residential. Those property tax rates are higher for commercial than they are for residential. But the one thing you get now that was a big part of the conversation with even changing the commercial back to residential on the west side, that 7 acres, was the sales tax revenue from rooftop sales online now that you could get, that you couldn't get really not too long ago. So that was part of the invitation back was the sales tax revenue for the town of Monument. So you're not on the east side, you have no water infrastructure. You have no wastewater infrastructure. That's all Monument, Woodmore Water and Sanitation. On the west side, you have no financial impact from the wastewater facilities because it's the metro district, it's the Monument Central District. So the only obligation from an infrastructure point of view, and you're not getting Monument, you're not getting Beacon Light Road to maintain, you're not getting County Line Road to maintain, you're getting a short piece of Misty Acres Boulevard to maintain. The rest of it stays in the county, so there's no financial impact to the town in that regard from this annexation. You get a lot of income, but you don't get a lot of obligations.
So the metropolitan district that you are proposing for the east side would not maintain the roads that you're going to be building? Right. Yeah, my other concern here is that we're almost going to be creating an island at the north end of Monument where we have a gap between the town limits and this particular project with no guarantee in the future that we're ever going to be able to connect to that. So we'll always have that out there. My other concern is that not only do we create this island, but we kind of isolate it. And the worst case scenario for me would be that the conceptual plan that we saw tonight is what we end up with. And therefore, we have 1,200 people living in an area that has really no community, nothing else. There's no open space within the development, at least on the conceptual plan. There's no yards. There's nothing for 296 kids that are going to be attending the Lewis Palmer School District to do anything with. And so that's the other issue that I have with it. So those are some of my comments. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Any questions from staff? Yes, sir.
How well have we done? We have a good understanding of available resources.
My reading of that comprehensive plan, it was that it didn't go into that level of detail. There wasn't a true physical analysis done, and there hasn't been any tracking.
Yeah, if you're going to speak, please come up to the podium if you don't mind, please, sir. Thank you.
I apologize. A lot
No
of
worries.
questions are rhetorical, like Commissioner Green asked a half a dozen questions in there, but no opportunity to answer her. So your question was if we don't provide the 15 acre feet of water, I think it's a condition of our approval for that density that we make that happen. If we don't, then we would not be able to progress beyond a certain number of permits for that. Is that correct, Sheila?
Yes, that's correct.
And just like in when we're doing the deal with Woodmore Water, we have to pay them for their water rights, a water development fee of $4 or $5 million. So if the town of Monument came back and said, hey, we have acquired some water, if you want that 15 acre feet, it's $30,000 an acre foot or whatever that number is, and we'll provide it for you. Otherwise, we'd have to go into the market, figure out who has water rights that are tributary to your system and pay that money and make sure that the water could be transported accordingly. And we have to prove that to you. It's not a given. And so if anybody's putting themselves in jeopardy, it's us and taking that risk that we can find that water. Now, alternatively, if we can prove the demand is less than what was projected for that, given the land use, and they can come out and reformulate the water based on actual demand. And also if we put in water efficient landscaping and all the other normal controls, and we can demonstrate that, then the town could make a determination that we had adequate water. But it's incumbent upon us to meet your criteria. Otherwise, we don't get those extra units, okay?
Good. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, we've heard the public comment. We've heard the applicants' answers, questions, answers. We've heard the staff's questions, answers, commissioners' questions, answers. Now we go to a motion to vote. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have an answer for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the school district assigns based on the neighborhoods, yeah.
All right. Now with that, next we go to motion to vote. Now there's several different items we got here. We got 4 different motions. 1, 2 annexations for both east and west have to be motion to vote. Once we get those done, then we go to, once we do the annexation, then we go into zoning for each one, east and west. We have 4 items. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would recommend doing your annexation and zoning for number 1, and then annexation and zoning for number 2.
Perfect. At this time, I ask the commission, do we have a motion for annexation and zoning for Monument Ridge number 1 West annexation with the initial zoning?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that the planning commission recommend denial of the Monument Ridge number 1 annexation for approximately 90 acres, finding it does not comply with the comprehensive plan and that the annexation of said property is not in the best interest of the town of Monument.
And do you have a motion for the zoning?
No, vote on the annexation first.
Going on the annexation for Monument Ridge number 1.
So you need a second.
I second that motion, Commissioner Trujillo.
Chair Trujillo, you're going to say yes if you're voting to deny it.
I'm voting yes to deny.
Vice Chair Ars,
No.
Commissioner Zernico,
No.
Commissioner Egley,
Yes.
Commissioner Collins,
No.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Needler. If you say yes, you are denying. No, you're not denying. You're voting yes to deny. No, would not deny. No, they also have to have an action to approve, a motion to approve. So the motion to deny fails 4-3. So I have to do another motion, correct?
I want to make a motion, but my conditions, do they go on this motion or they go on the?
They would go on both because the RA zone district is on both properties.
But they go, when I say both, do they go on the annexation?
I'm
and
sorry.
Also on the,
So no, they just go on the annexation,
okay, that's.
but you would want to include it for number 1 and number 2 if you do the
Okay.
same.
Commissioner Hours, I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Monument Ridge number 1 annexation for approximately 90 acres, finding it complies with the comprehensive plan and that the annexation of said property is generally in the best interest of the town of Monument, subject to the following conditions: that the annexation agreement include the removal from the zoning, the use of bed and breakfast, boarding houses, manufactured housing, and multifamily.
Second.
Chair Trujillo,
Say what I'm doing again. Yes.
you're voting
means
yes. Yes means yes.
We're
Yes.
talking annexation or
Annexation.
zoning
Annexation,
of which one, west or east?
West.
One.
The first
So
one.
what did
West.
we do just before this?
You denied the motion to deny did not pass.
correct.
So you have to still have an action.
If you vote yes, you're yes to annexation.
Okay, no, I do not agree to annexation as written under the conditions in which Commissioner Orris has identified.
Vice Chair Ars,
Yes.
Commissioner Zernico,
Yes.
Commissioner Egley,
No.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
No, because the tied to the,
and Commissioner Needler.
Yes.
To make it a yes, I would have to split it through the legal aspect of zoning, as the lawyer had mentioned earlier. The zoning would have to be separated, and it would have to be a zoning ordinance that would have to be amended so it can be separated. That's the only way I would agree with the annexation of that portion of land into the town of Monument. It has to be split, as the former chair had identified, that if without that, we are basically, as Commissioner Green had mentioned, we're lynching ourselves.
You can also recommend approval for the annexation and denial on the
As
zoning
a
for this one.
condition Then, on top of what Commissioner or Commissioner Hours has identified, the condition I would put on there is a condition would be a reiteration of the zoning ordinance to separate the two items in our bylaws in order to identify annexation as one piece, so we can annex this property into Monument. And zoning is completely separate, which gives not only the planning commission, but also the town council the ability to limit and identify what is coming into our community and identify how it can best suit not only the community, but also the town of Monument.
But it is separate, because they haven't voted on the zoning yet.
But that is a condition. You're absolutely right. Right now, though, right now we are going to vote on it, but they're one and the same. And as the legal had already identified, in order to change the zoning, we would have to change the ordinance.
No, they're two separate motions. You can recommend approval of annexation and denial of the zoning. You can recommend approval of the annexation and make your own recommendation of a zoning. Let's say you wanted to recommend single family or commercial, whatever. They're two separate motions, two separate actions. The only reason they're tied together will be when it gets to town council and the annexation agreement, because if the town council, let's say the town council approves the annexation as submitted, and then they approve a zoning for commercial, the annexation agreement says the annexation is nullified.
But the lawyer just made the comment that we would have to change the zoning ordinance.
You would have to change the zoning ordinance if you wanted to change the RA standards within the RA zone district.
Okay. But
That was the question that had been asked.
so is the lawyer still on?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Perfect. My question to you, ma'am, within the zoning ordinance, from my understanding, as we're reading this right now, as we're trying to understand this, the zoning ordinance, in order to change that to say that we want to make that at 2.5 acres and restrict that in the zoning up in those areas, what would we have to do? And put that condition on zoning?
But let me make sure I understand. So you want 2.5 acres on the west side,
On both?
on both sides,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
whole thing. You don't have to change the zoning ordinance. You have to change the zoning that you're recommending tonight. There are zonings within our code that allow a 2.5 acre. We can look and see which one it is, but you don't have to change the code. The code has RA, has single family, SF1, SF4 with all these different lot sizes. So you're not asking to change the code, because honestly, it doesn't make sense to have a 2.5 acre lot in a residential attached zone district. You would want to use one of the zone districts that currently allows that, that's a larger single family lot district. So what I think I'm hearing you say is you want to approve the annexation. You don't want to approve the zoning that you have that has been offered by the petitioner. You want a different zoning.
But the cost of yes, I want the annexation. There's no question.
Okay.
But I want to limit what they put inside there in that RA by acreage to keep consistent with the local community.
And you would not want to use the RA. You would want to use one of the other large lot zone districts.
So what would be recommended from the staff perspective, if I were to say my zone restriction or my zone
We're going to look up one of our large lot zone
Okay,
districts.
give me a large lot zone district associated with 1.5 to 2.5 associated with a zone district inside the town of Monument.
We have a large lot residential zone district of 2.5 acres. It's the LLR zone district.
LLR zone district. Perfect. So the motion that Commissioner Hours had identified, what was that, Luke? For annexation on
A motion to approve the annexation, adding the condition to remove bed and breakfast, boarding houses, manufactured housing, and multifamily from the annexation agreement.
from the annexation, but if I say yes to the annexation, I can still change my condition for zoning to allow for LLR 2.1, correct?
Yes, what your motion, and I'll have the town attorney clarify and verify that I'm correct.
Yep.
Your motion for annexation would be to approve with the condition that Commissioner Hours had. And then your motion for the zoning would be that you recommend the LLR zone district. That's all you would be doing.
LLR zone district. And with the LLR zone district, what are my parameters for acreage in those areas?
It's the 2.5 acres. Here, you read it. You have it in front of you.
For large lot residential?
Yeah.
2.5 acres, lot size may be reduced to 1/2 acre by shifting the remaining required minimum lot area into common open space. Lot width is 100 feet. Minimum front yard is 50 feet. Side yard is 20 feet. Rear yard is 20 feet. Maximum height is 35 feet.
Perfect. What is the next, other than large lot zone district? What's the next one underneath it at 1.25?
I would say single family detached low density.
And that's at 1.25.
That's 9,000 square feet.
Perfect. Got it. All right. So going back to Commissioner Hours, for annexation, I approve annexation. I'm going to make the motion in the zoning for each one of these as large lots zone districts for each one of them.
So what I would say you need to do is Commissioner Hours ask for a reconsideration. And Alice, you'll probably have to walk through the actual way to do that, but because there's already been a vote, do they do a reconsidering of that motion?
We've had the one motion that failed. Then the next one had conditions, but has not been voted on, correct?
It was a 4-3 vote.
On the second motion.
Yes.
Okay.
So it passed, but if Commissioner Trio wants to change his vote, we would have to reconsider the vote.
Yes, correct.
Recommend, I would ask Commissioner Teo, since my motion has passed, we know that you were willing to annex. Let's move on to the next motion and leave this motion stand.
And that stands.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so motion for item 3A passes 4-3.
3A, meaning for, define 3A, Luke.
3A is the approval of a request by Monument Ridge West for annexation of 90.98 acres for an area known as Monument Ridge Number 1 West, located on the southwest corner of Interstate 25 and County Line Road. That is
Perfect.
the annexation.
Thank you, sir. So the second, we're going to do the zoning now for Monument Ridge West,
Correct.
number 1.
Yes.
Okay. Going to make a motion for the zoning of Monument Ridge annexation, and that will be this. I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval for the recommend approval for the residential attached zone district for the known area of Monument Ridge 1, finding in the general conformance with the comprehensive plan and meeting criteria review in 18.03.140 and the land development code, subject to the following conditions. That's all area would be in conformance with LLR zoning to ensure that applicable land use is adjusted to the conformance of residential lots in the local area.
I would like to have the town attorney weigh in on this, but I think your motion should just be, you recommend approval of the LLR zone district. Take
Negative.
residential completely out.
Nope, because I want it to, yeah, or if we go just by the residential district, I want to ensure that it is clear that the LLR of that 2.5 acreage for each one of those lots is clear.
That's why you want to take residential attached out,
Yep.
because you're leaving residential attached in, which still gives them the ability to do the things that you don't want. Okay.
Lawyer, we would like your input, please, ma'am.
Yep, I agree with that.
Okay, so I move that the planning commission recommend approval of the zone district,
LLR.
LLR, for the for the area known as Monument Ridge Number 1 finding in the general conformance with the comprehensive plan and meeting the review criteria of section 18.03.140 of the Land Development Code, subject to the following condition, or just three. There are no conditions.
Correct.
We're saying that we don't want it as RA, we want it as LLR at 2.5 acres.
That's correct.
Perfect. That's what I want.
Second.
Oh, who?
Who did the second? Chair Trujillo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hours,
Yes.
Commissioner Zernico,
Yes.
Commissioner Egley,
No, I don't think it still meets the obligations that we put forth with the comprehensive plan.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes, I also agree. It doesn't conform with the comprehensive plan. However, I think this is our best option.
Commissioner Needler. That motion passes 6-1.
Next item on the agenda is the annexation of Monument Ridge number 2. This is the annexation of the initial zone to the east. And I ask if we have a motion.
Commissioner Hours. I move the planning commission recommend approval of the Monument Ridge Number 2 annexation for approximately 71 acres, finding it complies with the comprehensive plan and that the annexation of said property is generally in the best interest of the town of Monument, with the condition that the annexation agreement include the removal from the zoning, the uses of bed and breakfast, boarding houses, manufactured housing, and multifamily. Second.
Chair Trio,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hours,
Yes.
Commissioner Zernico,
Yes.
Commissioner Egley,
No, because the development request does not substantially conform to the town of Monument comprehensive plan.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Needler. That motion passes 6-1.
Next item on the agenda, a motion to vote. This will be for the zoning of Monument Ridge Number 2 East, annexation and initial zoning. Annexation has already been approved. Now we're up to zoning. I will make the motion. I move that the planning commission recommend approval of the LRR, correct?
LLR.
LLR zone district for the area known as Monument Ridge Number 2, finding that it is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan and meeting the review criteria of section 18.3.140 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
.5 acres.
Chair Trio,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hours,
Yes.
Commissioner Zernico,
Yes.
Commissioner Egley,
No, because I believe the development request does not substantially conform to the town of Monument comprehensive plan.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Needler. That motion passes 6-1.
Perfect. Folks, I want to just give you an understanding that what we did was a recommendation, okay? We recommended the annexation to the city council. My recommendation on the 17th, be there. We also recommended the zoning associated with that, okay? We listen to you. We'll definitely do that every time. But again, your voices needs to be heard at the city council meeting. My recommendation, be there. With that, we're going to continue on. You're more than welcome to depart if please do so quietly. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move on to non-agenda public items, land development use only. And I'm going to open that up from the chair. Are there any land development items? That's great. Moving on. Next item on the agenda. Yes, ma'am. Next item on the agenda is reports, communications, and announcements. Luke, do we have any?
I'll just say, there's a list of pre-application meetings, included with your paperwork. Those are meetings we've had with potential applicants that haven't fully submitted yet. So,
Perfect.
yep.
Great. Thank you, Luke. Any other reports, news, gentlemen? Gentlemen? Mrs. Green, any reports that you may have, ma'am? Is Kathy still on? Luke? Oh, okay. All right, Kathy, we're just checking to see if you have anything for us.
Yeah, Commissioner Green, you should be able to unmute if you have anything to say.
There you are.
No, I didn't. Thanks. I'm still here. I'm good.
All right, ma'am. Any reports, Kathy? Or are you all set, ma'am?
I'm set. Thank you.
You're very welcome, ma'am. At this time, staff?
As many of you know by my reply, I am no longer with the town of Monument, but I will be consulting until they fill the position. So your main point of contact will be Jeff and Luke. However, Luke is heading out July 24th. He is going to Cornell University. He got a full ride to get his master's. He's a smart little cookie. So, yeah. So there you go. He will be working, doing some remote work for the town to kind of help through, help train the new people. So Jeff is the lone dog, so be very nice to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And we're gonna grow together.
No,
Yeah.
you guys do great.
You get through this.
Yes.
So I may or may not see you again, but if I don't, it's been great working with you. If I do, I'll be back.
Yay.
Yay.
It looks like Commissioner Green has something else to say.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Green, please, ma'am.
No, I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
All
I
righty.
have nothing else to say.
Commissioner Hours, please, sir.
I want to thank, and the owner left, but I want to thank you all for coming back.
Yeah.
And I hope,
Oh, yeah.
I hope that no matter what happens, that between now and the time you get to the council, everything's worked out to the fact that the council won't have a whole lot of time to have to discuss a lot of things, but you can just approve it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, we thank you for coming back, though. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, we thank you for coming back again, though. All right. At this time, no other questions, comments, reports? None on the rights? Yes, sir.
On a side note, I want to just acknowledge to you all of you, we know that this was on a different night other than the original normally organized and timed planning commission. And I want to thank you personally for making the time to come out tonight and make this date work.
No.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, folks. At this point, we will adjourn the meeting. I will move to adjourn. Next meeting date will be July 12th at 2023. And then from there, that'll be at 6 p.m. At this time, we adjourn. Thank you for coming.